like I should dance now. Just a high kick. Woo! That's right, still got it. Oh, thank you, friend. Hi, how was lunch? Good? Great. I am so incredibly thankful to be here. So I'm going to talk about meditation, how it impacts performance, how it impacts sleep, and perhaps most excitingly, how it impacts your sex life. But before I start, just by a show of hands, how many of you guys already have tried meditation, period? Nice. That's so exciting. I don't think this would have been the case 5 years ago. And of those of you who have tried it, how many of you guys have an everyday practice? Be honest. Nice. And here, I want you to be super honest. How many of you guys who have tried meditation have hated it? I definitely did. Okay, so we're going to talk about that a little bit today. Why most people, when they try meditation, hate it. Normally, it's because they have this idea that the point of meditation is to give the mind a command to stop thinking. And then that's actually impossible. So you sit down, you're like, okay, brain, stop thinking. Oh, wait, now I'm thinking. And now I'm thinking about how I'm thinking, and I'm thinking about how I'm thinking about how I'm thinking, and I feel like I'm a failure, and then I quit, right? And that's most people's beginning and the end of their meditation career. But we're going to talk about how that does not have to be the case, and why thoughts are not the enemy of meditation in just a second. But before we dive in to the neuroscience of meditation, I'll tell you guys a quick story about how I met Dave Asprey and how I ended up here at this biohacking conference as a meditation teacher. I did not invent any technology. I don't have any fancy gadgets. I got no fancy headbands for you. But I do know a lot about meditation and performance. So sort of out of the blue, I got invited to speak at Harvard Business School at a biohacking conference, and I was so excited. I called my mama. I was like, Mom, I got invited to speak at Harvard Business School. Now, full disclosure, I have a BFA in musical theater, so I actually don't know what they teach at business school, and to be invited to speak at Harvard Business School felt like a really big deal. And I was so excited. I was preparing. I had 10 minutes, right, to share my #1 hack on meditation, and I had a tight 10 minutes ready, right? So we get on this panel. Dave Asprey's actually moderating the panel. And he's like, you know what, I've moderated 100 of these, and I think they get kind of boring. So you guys just introduce yourself and tell us one thing that not that many people know about you. And I was like, great, easy, I got this. So I get the mic, I'm first. I was like, hi, I'm Emily Fletcher. And something not that many people know about me are my aunts' names. I'm super Southern, and my aunts' names are Aline, Estelle, Moselle, Irma, Merlene, Gladys, Margie, and Delvina. And Delvina has a hair salon in Georgia called Del's Dues. And then I hand the mic to the next dude on the panel. And he gets up and he proceeds to give a 13-minute PowerPoint presentation. And my heart was sinking. And then he passes the microphone. Next guy, 10-minute PowerPoint presentation. Next guy, another presentation. And then the panel's over. And all I said was my name and my aunt's names. And I was like, no, I missed my chance to speak at Harvard Business School. So thankfully I hogged that mic at the Q&A, and then we had a dinner afterwards, and Dave and I got into a fight about biohacking, and we both put out butter to put on our dinner, and then we were friends ever since. So here we are. So I'm very thankful to Dave for giving me a second chance. And also, I just think we should all take a moment of gratitude for how exciting is this to spend 3 days with like-minded people who are all here readying themselves to be the most amazing version of themselves. Like, what a gift. Yeah. Let's hear it for us, you guys. We're awesome. So, let's talk a little bit about meditation. There are thousands of different styles of meditation, and what I teach at Ziva, so I should tell you what Ziva means. Ziva is actually a Sanskrit word that means bliss. It's one of the many Sanskrit words that means bliss. It's also a Hebrew name that means one who is radiant or kind. And since bliss, radiance, and kindness are pretty common side effects of meditation, I thought it would be a good name. Plus, I thought it would look really good on a t-shirt, which it totally does. What if I just came out with like a t-shirt can and I was like, pew, pew, pew. But the word meditation is a little bit trickier to define because we all have our idea of what we think meditation is, especially as it's becoming increasingly more popular. Like I said, most people think that the point of meditation is to give their mind a command to stop thinking, and I'm on a bit of a rampage to just get that out of the vernacular so that people can not rob themselves of a lifetime of bliss and fulfillment based on one failed attempt at trying to give the mind a command to stop. Actually, let's do a little exercise right now. Here's the thing about the mind. The mind thinks involuntarily, just like the heart beats involuntarily. So if we sit down to meditate and we try to give our brains a command to stop thinking, we're always going to feel like we're failing. It would be the same as trying to give your heart a command to stop beating. So let's just put it to bed for once and for all. So everyone, just on the count of 3, I want everyone in the room to try and give their hearts a command to stop beating. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Please, nobody die. But do you see how silly it is when we frame it like that? And that's the exact same thing that most of us are doing with meditation. So the style of meditation that I teach at Ziva, I like to call it the lazy man's meditation, because you don't have to do hours of yoga, you don't have to chant for hours and hours. All you really need is a chair. So there's thousands of different styles of meditation, but most of them fall under one of two umbrellas. They either fall under mindfulness, which I know there was a talk on mindfulness earlier this morning, which is basically a directed focus style of meditation, versus what I teach at Ziva is a self-induced transcendence style of meditation, meaning that you're accessing and inducing a verifiable fourth state of consciousness. So mindfulness or directed focus styles of meditation, it's more of a waking state practice, and the point of it is to direct your focus, like focusing on your breath or looking at a candle or imagining your chakras or thinking about a waterfall, any sort of guided visualization. This would fall under the category of a directed focus style of meditation. Versus what I teach at Ziva, which is Vedic meditation or a self-induced transcendence style, you're accessing a verifiable fourth state of consciousness. So different than waking, different than sleeping, and different than dreaming. Now, what do I mean when I say verifiable? I mean that if you were to hook your brain up to an EEG machine, which there's probably some at this conference, there's 8 classic points on the left brain and 8 classic points on the right. And in waking, sleeping, and dreaming states of consciousness, right and left brain are functioning separately from each other. Now, in this fourth state of consciousness, all 16 leads of EEG rise and fall in unison, which is a pretty cool party trick, but who cares, right? Like, why would I want my EEG leads to rise and fall in unison? Well, here's why. The left brain is in charge of the past and the future. It's in charge of critical thought, analytical thought, math, balancing your checkbook, language, all really important activities, but for most of us, we've been taking that left brain to the gym for a very long time. Just think, take action, achieve, make money so I can be happy in the future. Think, take action, achieve, make money so I can be happy in the future. And meanwhile, our poor little right brain is over here atrophying. Now, the right brain is the piece of us that's in charge of the right now. It's the piece of us that is in charge of present moment awareness, intuition, creativity, creative problem solving. Also music, color, connectedness, all of these things are right brain phenomena. And if you actually look at a human brain, it splits right down the middle, 50-50. And I don't think that nature makes mistakes. I do not think that nature would have given us 50-50 if it wanted us to use 90-10. So in this style of meditation, we're basically taking our right brain to the gym so that we can start to create some brain cohesion, we can start to increase our neuroplasticity and perform at the top of our game. So I could give you more like lotus flower and wave on the ocean analogies than you would ever care to listen to. I've been studying meditation for about 10 years, but I got to go to a neuroscience conference 3 weeks ago, and it was really exciting because I got to see on the gross physical level representations of all of these analogies that I've been studying for a decade. And what was really exciting is they would show us brain scans, right? And imagine this is a scan of a brain, and imagine that there's 4 quadrants, right? So in your waking state, these 2 quadrants light up, and these 2 go dark. And then when you meditate, these 2 light up, and these 2 are dark. Which I think that in and of itself is pretty cool, that you have a different brain when you're meditating than you do in your waking state. But how is that going to make you perform better, have better sleep, or better sex? Here's how. Over time of meditation, waking state, meditation, waking state, meditation, waking state, all 4 quadrants of the brain start to light up at the same time. And this is the thing that allows us to be more bulletproof. It's the thing that allows us to perform at the top of our game because we start firing on all cylinders. The other thing that happens as we start increasing this right brain, left brain communication is that we strengthen something called the corpus callosum. Now, the corpus callosum is the thin white strip that connects the right and left hemispheres of the brain. And we've known for a long time that meditators have thicker corpus callosums than non-meditators, but we weren't able to prove if it was causal or correlated. But now we know that the longer you meditate, the thicker this corpus callosum becomes, which again, I think is a pretty cool party trick, but who cares? Why on earth would I want a fat corpus callosum? Well, here's why. Because it is that little bridge is the thing that allows you to be in the middle of a high demand situation and simultaneously accessing your creative problem solving, that intuition. You know how if you're in a fight with your partner and it gets so intense you just have to leave or you just shut down, and then 2 hours later when you calm down you come out with all these these amazing ideas and witty comebacks, and you're like, why couldn't I think of that in the moment? So the thicker that corpus callosum becomes, the easier it is to access all of those creative problem-solving ideas, even in the middle of a high-demand situation. And my guess is that if you're in this room right now, you probably put yourself in a lot of high-demand situations, right? You're here because you want to really perform at the top of your game. So how does meditation specifically improve and impact performance? If we want to understand this, then we really have to understand stress, right? Because what is meditation? It's a stress-relieving tool, right? It's a tool to help you get rid of stress in your body. Some people are like, well, cooking is my meditation, or exercise is my meditation, or Facebook is my meditation. I'm like, no, that's just false. Facebook is no one's meditation. So glad that it exists, but not the same thing. And incidentally, neither is cooking or exercise. That's why they have their own words. Meditation, as I would define it, yes, is a stress-relieving tool, but there's lots of different kinds, and they do subtly different things to the brain. When you're practicing mindfulness, a very small part of the brain lights up, but extremely bright. Versus when you practice Vedic meditation, the entire brain lights up, but not as bright, which is why I'm talking about this whole brain cohesion thing and the conversation between the right and left hemispheres of the brain. So if we want to understand how meditation impacts performance, we really have to understand how stress impacts the body. And if we want to get a handle on that, we have to cut back in time about 10,000 years ago and say we're hunting and gathering in the woods. This is the Broadway showgirls move for hunting and gathering. And then let's say that a saber-toothed tiger jumps out at us with the intent to kill. Okay? Now your body is going to launch into a series of chemical reactions. The first thing that will happen is that your digestion will flood with acid to shut down digestion, because you need all hands on deck to fight or flee this predatory attack. That same acid will then seep into your skin, so that if you get bitten into, you don't taste very good. Your blood will start to thicken and coagulate, so that if you get bitten into, you don't bleed out. Your bladder and bowels will evacuate, so that you're light on your feet to fight or flee. So you know the nervous poos you get before you have a presentation, which I may or may not have just done? Just no, Emily, do not talk about poo. Yes. So that is actually your body trying to protect you. The other thing that happens is that your adrenaline levels increase, your cortisol levels increase, which we're going to talk about in a second, and your immune system goes to the back burner. Because who cares if you're going to get cancer if you're about to be killed by a tiger? Again, all hands on deck to handle this imminent predatory attack. So this series of chemical reactions is actually very good for you if your demands are saber-toothed tigers. The thing is, our demands are no longer predatory attacks. Now it's in-laws and overnight flights and, coming out to your parents at Thanksgiving and the 405 and deadlines and starting a company, none of which call for a fight or flight stress reaction. As a matter of fact, this involuntary fight or flight stress reaction has now become maladaptive. It's now disallowing us from performing at the top of our game, because it's utilizing so much of our brain and body's computing power to handle some imaginary tiger attack that isn't happening, and it's robbing you of your full capacity for the present moment awareness, for the task at hand. This is a biohacking conference, right? So let's imagine that the brain and body is a computer. And by the time we're 20 years old, we have something like 10 million precognitive commitments, or PCCs, in the brain. Now, what's a precognitive commitment? Imagine that your brain is a computer. And imagine that every single time you've gotten stressed, it's left a little open window on your computer screen. Right? Now, by the time we're 20 years old, we have about 10 million of those open windows on our brain computer. So let's put this into a real life example. Let's say you're at work and you're working away, you're like, I'm going to take a break. And then you decide to open up a little Facebook and a little YouTube, a little Hulu and a little Twitter and a little Vine and a little check your GoPro videos. And suddenly you've got 10 million windows open. And then you're like, maybe I should go back to work. And you open up your work email and you go to type an email, and that cursor is 20 spaces behind. And you're like, stupid computer, can't even type an email. And it's like, well, it's not really the computer's fault. Right? It's that you're using so much of the computing power to handle these old, irrelevant tasks that you're robbing it of its full capacity for the right now. So what meditation does is that it's actually going in and it's closing down all of those old, irrelevant windows. It's closing down, it's getting rid of those precognitive commitments so that you can take your energy and your power back for the right now. Now, how does it do that? In the style of meditation that I teach, yes, we're accessing this fourth state of consciousness, but we're also giving the body rest that's somewhere between 2 to 5 times deeper than sleep. Just let that soak in while I take a dramatic sip of water. It's not insignificant that we're giving the body rest that's somewhere between 2 to 5 times deeper than sleep. And when we give the body the rest that it needs, it knows how to heal itself. And one of the things that the body heals itself from is stress, right? So what we do is that we de-excite the nervous system. And when you de-excite something, you create order. And when you create order in your body, you can actually start to get rid of the lifetime of accumulated stresses that most of us have been acquiring. You know, the dog that barked in our face when we were 5, and the people that didn't come to our party when we were 10. All that stuff gets lodged in our cellular memory. And P.S., incidentally, this is why some people say that exercise is their meditation. And exercise is obviously very good for you. And it is powerful enough to handle the stresses of today. But if you want to get rid of the lifetime of accumulated stresses, you actually have to give your body rest. When you exercise, you excite your nervous system. You speed up your metabolic rate. And when we meditate, we de-excite it. We create order, which allows your body to almost defrag itself. It allows it to go in and close down all of those windows and get rid of those precognitive commitments. Imagine like this. Imagine your computer's just sort of on the fritz, and it's just being kind of slow and weird, and so you just shut it down for a few minutes, and then you turn it back on, and then magically it works again. That's kind of what meditation is doing to our brains and bodies, and that's why it increases our performance capabilities. So let me talk about sleep. How does meditation impact sleep? And I actually have a personal story I want to share on this one. As he mentioned, I was on Broadway for about 10 years before I found meditation. And my last Broadway show was a chorus line, and I was understudying 3 of the lead roles, which basically means that you show up to the theater and you have no idea which character you're going on for. Sometimes I would start the show as one character, and halfway through they would switch me to a different one. Or I would be chilling in my dressing room doing my taxes, and they would say, "Emily Fletcher, to the stage!" And I would start panicking because I wouldn't know which character I was playing. So I would just grab all 3 leotards, run down 7 flights of stairs. Someone would put me in a costume, and I'm not kidding you guys, sometimes I would be on stage before I knew which role I was playing. Which, it's not like, this is not a complaint, this is not a sob story, but it was really intense, and I found myself in a pretty constant fight or flight stress reaction. And I started having pretty intense anxiety, pretty intense insomnia, and I started going gray at the tender age of 26. And so here I am, like on Broadway, living my dream, doing the thing I'd wanted to do since I was 8, and I was miserable. And it was very confusing to me why I was living my dream, and it wasn't amazing, right? Because I was picturing, just martinis with Liza at Sardi's, and instead I was listening to Eckhart Tolle and rocking myself in the fetal position in my dressing room. And I was like, why is this not working? And I knew all the stuff. I had read all the self-help books, but it didn't matter, right? Because the body will not act in accordance with what it knows. It will act in accordance with the baseline level of stress in your nervous system. When we launch into a fight or flight stress reaction, it's involuntary. None of us choose it. Right? We don't choose to flip off the person on the 405. We don't choose to scream at our mother-in-law. It just happens, right? And it happens because we have too much stress in our nervous system. So here I am backstage, rocking myself to sleep and like crying and going gray and, to be honest, sucking at my job. And it got so bad that I was like, I got to do something. And this woman sitting next to me in the dressing room, she was understudying 5 of the leads. To this day, I don't know how she did it, but she was nailing it. Every dance this woman did was a celebration. Every song she sang was a celebration. Every bite of food, she'd be like, this is sensational. P.S. She was Australian. Meditation does not give you a bad Australian accent. So bad. So finally, she was like, look, my teacher's in town. Come to this meditation talk thing. So I went to this talk. I liked what I heard. I signed up for this course. And you guys, on the first day of the first course, I was meditating. I had no idea what that meant, but I liked it. It was different than anything I'd ever done before. And then that night, I slept through the night for the first time in 18 months. And I have every night since, and that was almost 10 years ago. Then I stopped getting sick. And then I stopped getting injured. And then I stopped going gray. And I started enjoying my job again. And I was like, wait a minute, why does everybody not do this thing? So I left Broadway in 2009. I went to India. I began what became a 3-year training process to teach this. And to be honest, it's the most rewarding creative, fulfilling thing I've ever done. Selfishly, I really love waking up to emails from people every day and saying, hey, my insomnia's gone, or hey, I don't drink as much, or hey, I started writing this book. People ask if I miss performing, and the answer is no, because of this, because I feel like I'm able to be a vessel and help other people perform at the top of their game now. So 2 emails that I got that were really exciting, going back to the sleep thing, is one was an executive at Google, and one was a guy who lived here in LA. And both of them were having a bit of sleep issues, not crazy insomnia, but interestingly, they both had these body data monitoring bracelets, which probably some of you guys have, and they were tracking their sleep. And before meditating, their sleep cycle looked like this. It went light, medium, deep, wake up for 18 minutes, light, medium, deep, wake up for 18 minutes, light, medium, wake up. And that took them about 8 or 9 hours, and they would wake up and they would feel pretty exhausted. And then, interestingly, their patterns were almost identical. They took the meditation course, and then afterwards, their sleep cycle changed to light, medium, deep for 6 hours, medium, light, wake up. And they would wake up and feel refreshed and energized and recharged. Now, they were actually shaving time off of the sleep that they needed, and they were feeling better. This, to me, is sort of worth the price of admission, right? People are like, I don't have time to meditate. But actually, once you start meditating, your sleep becomes more efficient and you're more rested on the other side, so you actually don't have time to not meditate. So why is that happening? Why does meditation improve the quality of your sleep? Well, because you basically start to insert this meditation practice into your day, which de-excites the nervous system, as I was mentioning. You start to use that time as a time for stress release so that you can actually use your sleep as a time for sleep. Before most of us start a meditation practice, sleep is the most effective form of rest that we have. And when you, like I said, when you give the body the rest that it needs, it knows how to heal itself. And one of the things that it heals itself from is stress, right? So tell me if this sounds familiar, any of my insomniacs out there. You lay down, you're exhausted, you can barely keep your eyes open, and then you lay down, you start to give your body a little bit of rest, and then the body wants to thank you for that rest. It starts healing itself. One of the things that it does is it starts throwing off stresses. So then the body launches into a little bit of activity, and then the mind corresponds with activity. What's mind activity? Thoughts. Right? So here you are, finally time to go to beddy bye, and then body starts healing itself of stress, and then bam, you're off on the thought train, and it's 6 in the morning, and you haven't gotten a wink of sleep. So how does meditation impact that? Well, we insert that meditation into our day. We use that time for stress release, and then we can use our sleep as a time for sleep. So we end up needing less of it because it actually becomes more restful. Good. You guys are like, yeah. When are we going to talk about sex? Now. The answer is now. So how does meditation impact our sexual performance? Do you guys know the #1 reason that couples don't have as much sex as they want to in America? Anyone take a guess? Yep, stress and tired. That's it. And actually, so 1 in 4 cohabitating couples in the US say that the #1 reason that they don't have as much sex as they want to is that they're too tired. So if we see the earlier point that I just made, if meditation is giving you deeper sleep and making you feel more energized, then this stands to reason that you might have a little bit more energy for your bedtime pleasure time. That's not a good title for a book. The other thing is that it's not just, the meditation is not just getting rid of the stress in your body, it's actually the meditation itself is giving you rest. So you're actually more awake on the other side and you have less stress in your nervous system. So that's thing 1. You give our body a little bit more rest, we have a little bit more energy to give to our partners and to our personal lives. Now I have a question for my ladies. How many of you guys have ever called your friend and been like, girl, I hooked up with this guy last night and it was so hot. This guy, he looked way older than his age and he had this like slamming pot belly and he was totally distracted the whole time. The answer is never. That's never happened. Never gotten a call like that from any of my girlfriends. So let's break this down a little bit. How is stress impacting our sexual performance? Well, in addition to accelerating body age, in addition to belly fat, in addition to going gray, in addition to balding, right, it actually is very on a very real level impacting male and female sexual performance. For women, if our cortisol levels get over a certain point, we're physically incapable of orgasming. And for men, if your adrenaline levels are too high, it creates a vascular constriction and can cause erectile dysfunction. So, this is, and I don't like to work on fear tactics, but I just want us to understand like just how potent and just how powerful stress is on the body. And it totally makes sense, because why would your body care about procreation if it's actively handling a predatory attack? It's like that is a tertiary need at best. So we got to handle the survival thing. So I don't like to talk about like fear tactics and scare tactics. Let's talk about the good stuff that does start happening when you start meditating. In addition to just getting rid of this film and this layer of stress, which increases your sensory perception. It almost heightens your senses, like you have spidey senses, which is lovely. It actually starts to increase your mirror neuron activity. Now, mirror neurons are a relatively recent discovery, and disclaimer, I am not a neuroscientist. I know that we have a lot of them speaking on the panel, but I am not one of them. But different scientists have different theories on mirror neurons. Some people say that it's revolutionary and that mirror neurons are going to do for psychology what DNA did for biology. And other people just think it's sort of cute and anecdotal. But what I know so far is that mirror neurons, here's the Broadway showgirls definition of a mirror neuron. It's like we have boomerangs in our brain, and they go out and they interact with everybody else's little mirror neuron boomerangs, and they come back and they report back. This is why if your friend walks into the room and she's upset, you can tell before she even says a word that she's feeling a little under. It's why you walk into a yoga studio and it just feels amazing in there. It's also, incidentally, why porn is a multi-billion-dollar industry. Mirror neurons allow you to see something and experience it as if you're in the experience versus just seeing it as a visual. So if I were to take a knife right now and slice my hand, you guys, even just talking about it, some people's faces, like, you wince a little bit. So even though I'm not touching you with the knife, you simply just watching that knife cutting my hand could create an experience of pain. This is just the tip of the iceberg, what we're starting to understand with mirror neurons. And when we start meditating, we start increasing this neural activity, and it can have the effect of your lover thinking that you're psychic, right? Because you're sort of just intuiting what it is that they want. And incidentally, it's not incidental actually, you're getting more pleasure from seeing your partner having pleasure. Right? And we get what we give. So you start to become a more generous lover, and it starts to create this really beautiful upward spiral. It starts to create this really beautiful reciprocal exchange because A, you're intuiting where they are and what it's feeling like for them, and B, you actually start to enjoy this generous act. And this, in my experience, is not just limited to the bedroom. Right? Once we start to have a meditation practice that makes sense for us, that we actually do, that we enjoy practicing, in no uncertain terms, it's giving you access to your bliss and fulfillment in the only place that they reside, which is inside of you and right now. And when we start to plug into this inexhaustible source of bliss and fulfillment, then we can start to utilize our performances, our romantic exchanges, our jobs, our families, all as an outlet for our fulfillment. Now, most of us go through life, especially high achievers, thinking, I'll be happy when blank. Right? I'll be happy as soon as I get my company off the ground. I'll be happy as soon as I get engaged. I'll be happy as soon as I stop planning the stupid wedding. I'll be happy, as soon as I have kids with this person. I'll be happy as soon as these kids are out of the house. I'll be happy when I get rid of this ding-dong head, right? I'll be happy when I make $1 million. I'll be happy when I make $100 million. Now I have $100 million, now I want a jet, right? And once you have $100 million in a jet, then you just miss the days that you could get high and not have to worry about managing your money all day, right? So it's like our happiness, our fulfillment becomes this little carrot that just gets further and further and further away, and then we die. 100% death rate, right? We're all going to the same place. And so if we spend the entirety of the moments left that we have on this planet chasing this carrot that never really arrives, and we're constantly chasing our fulfillment out here externally, inside of this person, this job, this amount of money, this car, this new biohack, then basically it puts us in a position of weakness, and it puts us in a victim mentality, right? That somehow my fulfillment lives out here. And what I love about meditation is that it gives you the ability to access that fulfillment in the only place that it resides, which is inside of you. So that's sort of what it looks like on a spiritual level, but on a very simple neurochemical level, you're flooding your brain with dopamine and serotonin, which are bliss chemicals, which are going to make you enjoy your life a lot more. Now, P.S., this is not an advertisement for don't achieve, right? Money's great, jobs are great, relationships are great, but they are not the key to your fulfillment. If you don't have a means by which to access your fulfillment right here, right now, it is not going to magically appear on the other side of some person, place, or thing. And this, to me, is why meditation is so powerful, and it's why people are calling it this like magical miracle, fix-all. It's not magic. It's not a miracle. It's a return on investment. You make that investment in yourself. You invest that time. You invest the time to learn properly, and then the return on investment is exponential. And once you have access to that thing in here, then you can start to use your desires. You can start to use all of your ambition, almost like nature's GPS. Where is nature using me? How is nature guiding me on where to deliver my fulfillment? And then we can utilize, our jobs, our lovers, our kids as really as things that we're delivering our fulfillment to, instead of being so needy and trying to suck the marrow out of all of it. Just what can I get from this situation? What can I get? Once you have access to this inexhaustible source of fulfillment, we can actually start to look at our lives from what can I give? And then paradoxically, all that stuff starts showing up. People just want to sleep with you more. Why? Because people like happy people. People want to hire you to work at their companies. Why? Because people want to work with happy, creative, present people. Your sleep gets better because you're not sitting there freaking out about whether or not you're going to, get this one job and this perfect amount of money and then be happy, so you can actually just be present and fall asleep. Good. So, that was a lot of talking. I think let's try a little meditation. You guys game to do a little meditating? Right on. Yeah, woo! I'm going to bring over my chair. Now, I should mention that what we're going to do right now is going to be, I'll do a bit of breath work, a bit of guided visualization. This is different than what I teach at Ziva, right? Like what I do at Ziva is basically I give you the tools to be self-sufficient. It's a 4-day course. It's a few hours. It's like an hour and a half a day for 4 days. And the idea is that I give you the key to the car. I teach you how to drive it, and then you're self-sufficient. You have the practice to take with you for life. It's an 8-hour class, so I can't do that right now. So instead, I'm going to give you we'll dip our toe into the water. We'll create some unity in the room, and I'll give you guys an experience that we can all enjoy together. So let's all take our right hand, and we're going to take our thumb and our ring finger. We're going to do something called balancing breath. I did this on the Bulletproof podcast, but it was mostly audio, so no one knew what I was doing. So here's your chance to see it visually. So we might look silly, but we'll all look silly together. And mostly our eyes will be closed pretty soon once we get the hang of it. So everyone take your thumb and close your right nostril with your thumb and exhale through your left nostril. Great, really simple. And then inhale through the left nostril. And then switch and close your left nostril with your ring finger and exhale through the right. Beautiful. Inhale through the right. And then switch, closing the left nostril with your thumb, exhaling through, we're closing the right nostril and we're exhaling through the left. Good. Inhale through the left. And then switching, closing the left nostril with your ring finger, exhaling through the right. And just making yourself comfortable in your chair, ideally back supported, head free. And you can start to take this in your own time. What I'm interested in is that you inhale all the way to full. So you take your lungs to their full capacity. And then when you exhale all the way to empty. And you can go ahead and close your eyes if you haven't already. And taking this in your own time, the pattern is simply out through the left, in through the left, and then you switch out through the right, in through the right. And I want you to take your lungs all the way to their full capacity and then take one more sip of air. And then float there at the top of your inhale and just let that breath fall out of the lungs. And then when you get all the way to empty, float there at the bottom of the exhale before you allow that breath to simply float back into the lungs. So already we're waking up this simultaneity of effort and surrender. And actually, we're starting to marry the right and left hemispheres of the brain. So we'll do a few more cycles. And if you want to get fancy, if you want to incorporate your imagination into the story, you can almost imagine that that breath and that energy is coming up through the base of the spine. And then when you exhale, you're sending that breath and that energy out through the middle of your forehead. It's just a visualization, but it creates a nice cycle and a nice flow of energy. This is also something you can do, P.S., if you can't fall asleep, or if you're too amped to meditate, you can do this before you meditate. And then the next time you come to an exhale on the left-hand side, I want you to keep your eyes closed and drop your hands into your lap. And we'll move into something called Come to Your Senses. It's a very simple but incredibly powerful exercise. And it's simply the art of bringing our awareness into the five senses, into the right now. So we'll begin by bringing our awareness to our sense of hearing. So I want you to hear what you're hearing right now. Listening for the most prevalent sound you can detect. For most of us, it might be my voice or maybe the hum of the speaker. What's the most prevalent sound happening for you right now? And then on your next inhale, I want you to listen for the most subtle sound you can detect. Moving past the obvious and listening for the subtlety. Maybe it's the sound of your own breath, or maybe you can hear traffic on a faraway street. Really good. And on your next inhale, I want you to bring your awareness to your sense of touch. Noticing the most prevalent tactile sensation happening for you right now. For most of us, it might be our bums in the chair, or maybe you're really full from lunch. Good. And on the next inhale, shifting your awareness to the most subtle tactile sensation. Can you actually feel the breath as it comes in and out of the nose? Can you feel your skin against your clothes? Or your hair against the back of your neck? Really good. And on your next inhale, even with the eyes closed, I want you to see what you're seeing. What's the most prevalent sight happening for you right now? It might be simply blackness. That's A-okay. And on the next breath, let's shift our perception to the most subtle sight we can detect. It might be the light streaming in through our eyelids, or maybe there's cells dancing in the membrane in front of our eyes. Maybe there's a faint remains of color. Just what's the most subtle sight you can detect right now? Good, and on your next breath, we'll move our awareness to our sense of taste. So really tasting what you're tasting. Even though we're not currently eating anything, there's always some sort of a taste happening in the mouth. What's the most prevalent one? Did you brush your teeth right after lunch, or can you taste the bulletproof coffee in your mouth? And then shifting our awareness to notice the most subtle taste happening right now. Is your mouth acidic? Is it dry? They say that God is in the details. And as we start to wake up the subtle differences of our sensory perception, we start to wake up that internal divinity. Really good. And on the next inhale, I want you to smell what you're smelling. Bless you. What's the most prevalent smell you can detect? Maybe it's the smell of your own hairspray or your neighbor's cologne. And then on your next inhale, I want you to notice the most subtle. How does this room smell different from your hotel room? Or can you smell the air conditioning? Or can you smell someone's cologne from far away? It's a bit of a challenge to move through the prevalent sensations to find the subtle ones. That's why we practice it. Really good. And on your next inhale, I want you to see if you can wake up all 5 of your senses at the same time. So keeping the eyes closed and simultaneously hearing what you're hearing, feeling what you're feeling, seeing what you're seeing, tasting what you're tasting, and smelling what you're smelling. It's through our 5 senses that we access our 6th sense. The present moment is the future in the making. So again, taking an inhale and waking up all 5 senses at the same time. Hear what you're hearing, feel what you're feeling, see what you're seeing, taste what you're tasting, and smell what you're smelling. It's a simple exercise, but the act of bringing your awareness into your 5 senses, it jettisons you into your body and into the right now. And the truth is, if you can get yourself into the right now, the truth is you're fine. We are all currently drowning in abundance. The present moment is the only place that our bliss and fulfillment hang out. So instead of moving away from the past or away from the future, instead of moving away from the stress, we can utilize this technique to move into our bodies, into the present moment. So one final time, waking up all 5 senses. Hear what you're hearing, feel what you're feeling, see what you're seeing, taste what you're tasting, and smell what you're smelling. And then keeping the eyes closed, we'll move into a short silent practice. I like to call it the M-word technique. It's a very gentle, very simple meditation. And all we're going to do is use the word one, almost like a mantra. We're going to use this word one, and we're just going to hear it like an instrument in the background of our mind. You're absolutely 100% allowed to have other thoughts. When you notice that you're taking a little mental field trip, you can innocently and spontaneously come back to this word one. Imagine it almost like an anchor, helping to de-excite your mind and body, helping to induce a bit of rest. If you have a meditation practice or if you have a mantra of your own, you can absolutely use that now. And if not, you can simply use the word one. And again, hearing it in the background of your mind, like a whisper of an echo of an idea, knowing that you're absolutely allowed to have thoughts. Now you have this word to come back to like an anchor. You don't have to sit like a frozen statue. Just comfort is key. And we'll be here for a few minutes. Don't mind the time. Really giving yourself permission to be exactly where you are. If you're jacked up on coffee, that's A-okay. If your heart is racing, that's A-okay. If your mind is going 1,000,000 miles a minute, let it go. Now you have this word to come back to, and you can imagine it almost like an anchor. If you start to feel like you're getting a little sleepy, and you start noticing your head nodding a bit, just let yourself fall into that feeling. It's all good. Ease, effortlessness. This is the name of the game. Keep the eyes closed, but we'll let go of the word inside. We'll let go of whatever practice we were doing and simply take a few moments with the eyes closed. It's really important to end any meditation practice with a bit of eyes closed time, almost like you're cutting the cord to the anchor, cutting the cord to whatever de-excitation practice you were using, and allowing yourself to gently float back to the waking state, float back into the body. So just keeping your eyes closed. And I know Dave did a bit of a gratitude exercise this morning, but my favorite way to end a meditation is with gratitude. So what if we all collectively just think of 3 things that we're most grateful for right now? And it might be different than what you listed this morning. Maybe you made a new friend at lunch, or maybe you've decided you're going to buy yourself a purple pantsuit. But whatever you're most grateful for right now in this moment. It could simply be that you have air to breathe, or you have a place to sleep, or food to eat. What's interesting about gratitude is that it doesn't matter if you find anything to be grateful for. Simply asking the question changes your neurochemistry. Simply asking, what do I have to be grateful for right now? It retrains our brain to look for things that are going right instead of looking for problems to solve. Because what we put our time and our attention on grows. So we want to take care that we're watering the flowers and not watering the weeds. So again, just thinking of those 3 things that you're most grateful for and keeping the eyes closed. What if you just let that bring a smile to your face? Even if you have to fake it till you make it, everyone's eyes are closed. And what if you breathe in that smile to every single cell in your body? Yes, because it feels good for you, but also because of how you're going to interact with everyone you meet for the rest of the day today and for the rest of this conference. It seems a little hippy-dippy, it can seem a little silly, but it is enough to turn around your whole day. And then from this connected place, from this expansive place, which to me, the point of meditation, we remind ourselves that we're a part of nature, and we remind ourselves that nature is a part of us. From this expansive, connected place, what if we set our intention for the rest of the conference? And instead of what can we get out of it, what if we simply change this paradigm to what can I contribute? How can I help? What can I learn so that I can share it with my community? What feedback can I give to a speaker? Or what person do I see by themselves might I be able to interact with? Once we find a meditation practice, once we have access to this fulfillment inside of us, we can start to utilize our desires as an indicator of where nature is using us to deliver our fulfillment. And we can do that by setting our intention. How much fun do I want to have for the rest of the conference? How many people do I want to make laugh? How many new friends do I want to make? It's a simple shift, but the ripple effect can be powerful. And taking a nice deep inhale through your nose and exhaling through your mouth. Really good. And again, inhaling through your nose and exhaling through your mouth. Just breathing in gratitude and all kinds of delicious goodness, or some delicious coffee smell, and then just exhaling anything that isn't serving you. Giving yourself permission to be fully here, fully now. And in your own time, whenever you're ready, we can start to slowly open the eyes. It's all good, as if we set a meditation alarm. Well, I have to say, you guys, good job. That was really impressive. Give yourselves a round of applause. Yeah. I have to say, I expected there to be a lot more kerfuffle. I expected there to be a lot more alarms and people coming in and out, but it was really beautiful to see how dropped in everybody got. So I'll leave you with a couple little takeaway tips. One, it's interesting that the phone went off because a lot of people ask, well, can I use an alarm when I'm meditating? And I personally am not a big fan of alarms bringing you out of meditation, because the whole idea is that you're de-exciting your nervous system. And if you set an alarm, the thing is that that this device has no way of knowing how deep or shallow you are in the meditation. It can sort of rip you up from your practice, and it can give you what I call the meditation bends, which looks like a little bit of headaches, a little bit of irritability, a little bit of not so pleasantness. And you can have headaches and irritability without wasting your time meditating all day. So my preference is no alarms. Just have a timepiece near you. And then just set your sort of internal clock. You know how if you have a really early flight and you have to get up at 4 in the morning and then you wake up at 3:59 because you're so worried about waking up? We all have this internal barometer. We all have this internal alarm clock. But most of us aren't using it because we become so dependent on these external brains, like iPhones. So I would recommend just have a timepiece near you. Decide how long you want to meditate for, and just check the time as often as you like. And just play around with it. You can set like a safety stop alarm for a few minutes after your practice. The other thing is jet lag. A lot of meditators report not a total eradication, but a significant reduction in jet lag. Some people report like 80 to 90% less jet lag. Now, when you're flying, you actually have to meditate a little bit more than you would in your regular life because it's so taxing on the body. Basically, anytime the human body moves faster than it can run, you're burning up adaptation energy. Your brain is having to adapt to that. So if you are moving through space very quickly, you've got the dehydration of the plane, you're changing time zones, your body has to really adapt to that, and it's very taxing on the body. So you actually want to meditate a little bit more when you're flying. I have to say, it's been pretty revolutionary for me personally. I've been to India, Australia, China, Japan, countless times from New York to LA, and I basically just don't get jet lag anymore. So that's exciting. Oh, and on the technique that we just did, it's nice to start, if you want to practice come to your senses, it's nice to start with your eyes closed, but then once you get the hang of it, you can do it anywhere, anytime. You can do it in traffic, even with your eyes open, obviously. You can do it at the post office. Just suddenly there's a lot of wrecks in Pasadena. You can do it at the post office. You can actually do it in the shower if you're about to get it on. You can just like do this whole come to your senses really thing really quickly to heighten your senses before you have a sexual encounter. And then it'll almost become like second nature. And the idea here is that we're moving towards the positive instead of away from the negative, right? If you're stressing out about something, you can't be like, oh, don't think about my taxes, don't think about my taxes, don't think about my ex-boyfriend, because then you're just watering the weeds, watering the weeds, watering the weeds. Instead, we want to move towards the positive. We want to move our attention towards the present moment awareness. And come to your senses is a very simple but powerful way to do that. So I'll leave you with this. It is, if you already have a meditation practice and you're not meditating, what if we use this as a reset? What if we use right now, this moment, as a recommitment time? You owe it to yourself because you're going to enjoy your life more, and you owe it to everyone that you're going to interact with. If you don't yet have a meditation practice, I highly encourage you to explore different techniques. Find out what styles resonate for you. Find a teacher that you trust, that you respect. I personally am not a big fan of learning to meditate from like a book or an app. I mean, they're fine, but nothing really replicates being in person and having that one-on-one guidance and supervision. And do make sure you trust and respect the person. And and then if you try it and it's not for you, then at least you know, right? At least you will have collected the data on your own nervous system. And the other thing I will say is that give it a minute. Most meditation practices, if they're any good, will create a bit of a detox process in your body. It will create a little bit of what I call unstressing, and that can look like a detox for your soul or like a facial for your brain. And for the first few days, it can be pretty intense. So don't think like, oh, I'm 2 days in and I'm crying the whole time. This meditation thing sucks. Just give it a minute to let all those old hurdy-poos come up and out so that you can really start to perform at the top of your game and access what I call 24-hour-a-day bliss, which is always right here inside of you, right here, right now. And once we have access to that, no one can take it away from us, and then we can utilize all our desires as, like I said, nature's GPS. Where is nature using me to deliver my fulfillment? I promise it's a much more enjoyable way to go through your life. Well, thank you guys so much for being here. Thanks for doing that with me, and I'll see you around.